Welcome to 2017 and welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. Very special guest this week. We're joined by Chris Zimmerman, the President and CEO of the St. Louis Blues. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
And interesting while you're here to talk about some renovations at Scott Trade Center, but I have to start off with the Winter Classic. Wow, what a great day for St. Louis.
Yeah, no, sometimes you go into these big events and there's a lot of anticipation and you just don't know. And I have to say, I've been working in sports for 20 years, and for me personally, for our team, really for the whole region, everybody that this event touched came away just glowing. And so I think importantly, we had the national and in some ways the international stage, certainly in the hockey world, and St. Louis came through shining.
Now, I'm a staunch opponent of things happening on the hallowed grounds of Busch Stadium that aren't baseball related. This was not during the season, and this might have been the best non-baseball related activity I've ever seen at Busch. It really was a kind of a shot in the arm, and it's not a bad time for it right now in St. Louis.
Yeah, I think we got awarded the event soon after the announcement of the Rams' departure. And I think the league recognized that this was an important moment for St. Louis, that our sports teams that are here needed to step up and really help rally people, which is really part of, I think, the beauty of what we get to do every day.
So let's jump into why you're here on This Week in Missouri Politics. Scott Trade Center is actually owned by the city, something I don't think a lot of people know. You're needing to upgrade the building or face competition issues, correct?
Yeah, so the building now is 22 years old. It's city-owned, and over the life of any of these buildings, particularly after 20-plus years, technology changes, elements get worn out. If you look around, if you will, the sports landscape in cities like Tampa and Cleveland that also have buildings that came on in the mid-90s, we're all going through this. And our ability to continue to bring events here is the critical piece.
So just looking back on the history of the building, it's owned by the city, but the Blues ownership and the management company have put over $200 million into that facility. Now that is probably as much to bring in these other concerts as it is the Blues games, right?
Well, sure. I mean, the $200+ million was to build it, finance it, and maintain it over the last 22 years. We plan on continuing to do that going forward. But what's happened is some of the major sporting events, particularly the SEC championship, we have their basketball championship next March. They came to us a couple of years ago and said, listen, we've awarded you this event, but it's really clear that the building's falling behind. For us to continue to plan to bring this event here, and certainly for you to get events in the future, you've got to step up in a big way. And they gave us a very specific list of amenities and things throughout the building that they expected.
So you've asked for the city to be involved. They seem to be willing to work with you. And you've asked for the state to be involved. Now, the new governor, Governor-elect Greitens, he's made a statement about the soccer stadium. Let me just ask you this. So let's say you're in an elevator with the governor. Why is this different, and why would this not fit under what he said about stadiums in the past?
Well, I think, I think the important thing for any of the state representatives and for the governor to understand is the fact that, so over the course of this building, the building, have generated well over $100 million in state tax revenue without a dollar coming from the state. If we don't do these improvements, whether it's the city tax revenue or the state tax revenue, it's going to decline. What we've shown people at the state level is that this is really an investment decision. Put these dollars in, help support us along with the city, as well as the money that the Blues will continue to contribute, and the tax revenues will more than pay for the dollars that we're asking for the state to appropriate.
It's a little bit of supply-side economic development, right?
It is without question, and this is what we said last spring when we spent time educating people in Jefferson City. This is an investment decision, and that's the key thing that we'd like to bring to the governor-elect.
So instead of Reaganomics, maybe Greitensnomics on economic development in St. Louis.
Okay, works for me.
Well, let's talk one thing I thought was interesting. You know, talk about a football team that's 8 home games a year. How many home games do the Blues play every year?
So we play 41 regular season games. Plus exhibition games, and then obviously, ideally, we'd like to get as many as 16 more home games to get us through and get the Stanley Cup here in St. Louis, along with that parade down Market Street.
So speaking of, how's the season going?
Season's been going well. You know, some people would say the team is a bit in transition, but we've played well. I think we're looking for more consistency. The league is very competitive, but we feel like we're positioned well to move into this back half of the season and get ourselves into the playoffs.
And get hot at the right time, right?
Well, that's really the thing in our league. You know, you've had teams from 1 to 8, in terms of 8th place teams coming into the playoffs and winning the Stanley Cup. The important thing is to get there, to be healthy and be prepared. But we're excited about this season. Great momentum coming out of the Winter Classic. It's our 50th anniversary. We're all about what we're doing now and what we can do going forward.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thanks so much for joining us on This Week in Missouri Politics. We'll be watching the legislature and see how this moves through the process.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
We'll be right back with our opinion maker panel. Joe Lakin makes an appearance back, and we have new Rep. Gene Evans joining the show for the first time. We'll leave you with this week's leading Missouri economic indicators.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
St. Louis is a special place. This is home.
And we're more than a community.
We're a family. We value hard work. We sacrifice.
And even in tough times, we don't run. We work together.
Except if you're Stan Kroenke, a Walmart billionaire. He took our Rams to Los Angeles.
We just didn't lose a football team. We lost good jobs.
He hurt our economy, our families. He turned his back on us, our values, our town.
And for what?
So he can make millions more?
Well, we may not have our Rams, but this football Sunday, we can all send Stan and Walmart a message.
Shop local, not Walmart.
Shop Dearborn.
Shop Schnucks.
Shop and save.
Stand up for community.
Put our family first. Because Kroenke may have taken our team,
but they'll never take away who we are.
At Ameren, Missouri, we're committed to providing cleaner energy
for generations to come.
Our new state-of-the-art solar energy center is a great example of that commitment. It's part of our long-range plan to deliver more than 30% of our power from cleaner resources.
Making sure your energy future is not just brighter,
but cleaner too. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. We're joined this week, Mike Lewis, head of the AFL-CIO here in Missouri. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much.
Tracy McCreary, friend of the show, representative here in St. Louis. Welcome.
Thank you.
Your new colleague, Gene Evans, a newly elected legislator, St. Louis County, right?
That's right. Glad to be here.
Excellent. Friend of the show. I don't know, John Lamping's coming back into Missouri politics, but there was a window of best hair in Missouri politics. Victory Enterprises, every elected Republican's consultant, Joe Lakin. Let's jump right in and talk about a client of yours, the Speaker of the House, Todd Richardson. I thought it was a great speech. I thought he basically took the election, boiled it down, and in breaking with Jason Kent, it was very statesmanlike in how he made his address.
Yeah, look, I think Todd did what Todd does. He did a great job, laid out a clear vision. You know, I started in Missouri politics in 2008, and we've had a Democrat governor except for about 8 months since I've been involved. And so there is a pent-up agenda that's been blocked by the governor. Obviously, a number of things have gotten done over his objection, but I think Todd laid out the clearest vision yet for a conservative reform and a results-minded agenda that he's going to move forward, and I think is going to matter to the state.
Representative, I thought he took the things that was campaigned on, boiled them down, but didn't do it in a preachy way.
No, he's a good man, and he's a good leader, and he laid out his agenda, and he spoke like a statesman, and he's someone that we all look to for guidance, those of us especially who are new. And I thought he was very clear, and he has already acted upon some of the things he said in that speech, so I'm excited, and I believe in him. He's a sincere guy.
Representative, I thought it was interesting. I thought the minority leader, Representative Beatty, she did good. I mean, she laid out there was time, she laid out her speech, and then thought it was always the classy move to sit and listen to the speaker. And I didn't hear a lot of things in that speech that I didn't hear on the campaign trail.
That's a good point. There's a lot of consistency. The thing I'm frustrated by is that there are a couple major donors to the Republican Party whose agenda seems to be moving very, very quickly, and that's the Sinkfield Humphreys money, I think, is really talking, and I'm disappointed to see that money can buy priorities. But I will say I have great respect for the Speaker, and I'm glad to hear that he is so enthusiastic about ethics reform, because I think it's something both parties agree on, that we need to look at ethics reform.
Mike Lewis, there's some of that speech I wanted to key on with you. He talked about right to work, and I believe he's already referred the bill, going to be a hearing this week. Give me the case on why they should move slowly on right to work.
Well, right to work is very complex issue totally. I think that people don't understand what right to work is. Even in the speaker's delivery on Wednesday, he said that all people shouldn't be forced to join a union to have a job, and it's not true. That is not what right to work represents. Right to work represents that all people who are represented by a union must pay for that representation only. They don't have to contribute to the political funds or anything else. They pay for the representation they get, and where else do you get free representation? I don't know too many lawyers that do.
Well, Representative McCreary, but that'd be it. You can go work anywhere you want, right? You don't have to take any job in America, right?
That's correct.
I mean, unless you're making, Joe Lakin, if you're not making license plates in a prison, you can go take any job you want.
Yeah, here's the thing. Todd Richardson, the Speaker, is a young, generational change speaker. He's looking to the future. You look at our neighbors. We are falling behind economically. We are losing jobs in this state. We're losing manufacturing. And if we're going to compete in a not only a regional, national, but a global economy, this is a reform that we need to do, and it's going to happen.
Representative, let's talk about timeline here. The bill was referred last week. It's going to be heard this week in committee. When do you think you're voting on this on the floor?
I would say within 2 weeks.
Wow. When do you think the governor signs the bill?
Well, that's up to him. So I don't know, but it's a big priority. So I think it's going to be pretty quick. I would say by the end of February.
Well, before spring break.
I think so.
Interesting. Let's talk a little bit about some other stuff. He mentioned tort reform. There's other things outside of these issues that are economic development. Utilities. There's a big utility bill that could put a lot of Missourians to work.
Right.
What are some other things beside that you heard in the speech you might be able to sign on to?
Well, I think with these utility bills, what we need to be careful about is short term, they might create jobs, but utilities are something that people cannot live without. So in a way, it's like a tax. So every time we allow the Public Service Commission or the legislature to increase utility rates, that means everybody's cost of living gets higher. And there are a lot of people on fixed incomes around our state, and we need to be very, very careful about raising what is in effect a tax on people.
Michael, did you hear anything in that speech you could sign on to?
Well, I don't think that the speaker talked enough about infrastructure. Every year we pass by on a lot of federal dollars that could be coming into Missouri to create jobs, and because the Senate and the House can't agree on what's important in an infrastructure bill, that money just doesn't get here, the jobs don't get created, and we would be a much better off financially state if we would invest some money and time and create a very good bill that would take care of the problems we're having.
Joe, I hear the president talking about that. You think in Missouri there has been an impasse. I mean, to me, I think the government should cut everything, but maybe not MoDOT, right? There are some things, utilities and infrastructure, that maybe everybody could sign on to.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got sort of three different views of how the government works. There's those who think government should do everything, those that think government should do nothing, and there's those in the middle who say, what smart investments can we make that are going to create a return long term? And I think you're going to see, I mean, you talk about the legislature not coming up with a plan. Well, we've actually had a governor for 8 years who has really done nothing on transportation except Deep Six, a measure by putting it on the August ballot where he knew it was going to fail. So, you know, I think you look to these leaders to get together on infrastructure. I do think it's something, whether you're talking about the Scott Trade Center or utility infrastructure or our roads, I think there will be a serious conversation about that this year.
Is that a conversation your caucus is open to having?
Absolutely, and I know people in my district are serious about getting the roads in better shape. That is a big deal in my district.
Well, listen, I asked you during the fall, if you care about infrastructure, Donald Trump's probably the most serious person talking about infrastructure in a long time. The EPA, he might actually decide to put people to work and limit the EPA's ability to kill jobs. You got to find some of that stuff encouraging.
And I like what you said, he might. I have not seen a plan from Donald Trump or anyone that he's appointed to any office to this date. And we're
Is
days
that abnormal?
I think so. I think that there are plans out there that actually should have been talked about on the campaign trail, during the race. And no one wanted to commit to, and I blame both parties. Both parties did a very poor job of portraying what their plan was, how to create jobs, and how to get the things done that they were promising. And now President-elect Trump is in that situation. He's days away from becoming the President of the United States. No one knows what his plan is.
Joe Lake and I looked at Governor-elect Greitens, newcomer to politics. A lot of folks looked at his ag appointment. We're kind of waiting to see what he would do. Looks like he knocked that out of the park. A lot of folks, I think, look to Donald Trump's EPA appointment, somebody that you're actually, another person you're working with. His EPA person, I think people underestimate how much these regulations kill jobs or just scare them off. I think you can tell this guy's not a fan of job-killing regulations.
Yeah, we've got Attorney General Scott Pruitt from Oklahoma, who is part of a group of Republican leaders who have been cultivated in the states because of the Obama administration. You've had, I believe, over 900 Democrat legislative seats have been lost during the Obama administration. The state governments are full of good conservative Republican leaders who have come up through this process. And Scott Pruitt is a guy who is ideal for the EPA. He's going to restore a balance there. You know, people have flocked to Donald Trump because they're sick of ponds and puddles being regulated by the EPA. They're sick of kids not being able to work on their family farms. He's bringing a common sense approach, and I think, you know, Mike represents a lot of members down in Jefferson County, a place where the EPA put hundreds of jobs out of business during this administration.
They just totally pointed them and said, you're out.
Absolutely, and Scott Pruitt's going to be a guy who's going to bring a balance back that's going to ensure that not only is our air clean, our water clean, but our businesses are able to operate. These are people trying to create jobs, and every time you attack them, you're just putting people out of work.
Well, it's not the government's job to create jobs. And Donald Trump has a vision to reduce the barriers that hinder job production. So what we need is a government that gets out of the way and let people work. It's not their job to employ people. That's one of the problems that we have.
President McGarry, you mentioned you represent a larger Jewish community in your district. I mean, it is striking to me as a Missourian, you know, from the same state as Harry Truman that recognized the state of Israel, to see probably the first pro-Arab president. I mean, does the state of Israel, I got to be counting down the seconds till Obama's gone.
Yeah, I'm horrified, actually, about what Trump is doing. I cannot believe he's trying to handle international affairs and very, very sensitive international affairs using Twitter. I think that's very, very dangerous, and I'm just very hopeful for the country and the world that somebody gets Trump under control and that he has a better grasp of world affairs moving forward.
Joe Lakin, if you live in Israel, you got to be praying that you can hang on until Trump gets to office.
Yeah, look, I mean, the Secretary Kerry just turned his back on Israel, and I think you've seen this creeping this direction throughout this administration.
I think this is where the president was the whole time.
It very well may be. Very well may be.
Representative Babbitt, it's interesting. The Republican Party, I think one of the issues people underestimate is the passion for defending the nation of Israel.
Absolutely.
It is weird to live in a country that is more on the side of Iran than Israel today.
And it's bipartisan.
Well, for another week and a half.
I've had people in my family, people in my district who are very Democratic progressives, and they are just outraged at Kerry's position and what we've done with Israel and the United Nations.
One place you can agree with the president-elect on?
Oh, I'm open to hearing what he has to say. Let's just say that. So it's hard to know what he thinks because I'm seeing what the president thinks in 140 characters on Twitter.
I totally agree with Representative McCrary that once again we've got a president-elect who all he says is we're going to blow ISIS up. Where's the plan? And I understand there's things that have to be kept secret. I get that, but where's the real plan? What are we going to do? We just can't build a wall and start throwing people out of the country without a plan, without the real thing.
We elected a president 8 years ago on hope and change, though. I think regular people have lost faith in 8-point government plans to do things. I don't think they either think they don't happen or they don't affect their lives. I think maybe folks losing faith makes them not as interested in seeing some of those plans that they don't think will happen anyway. And give me one thing Trump could do to make you think, well, this might work out.
He could continue with his plan, whatever it is, of infrastructure all across the United States.
He could make himself available to the media. He's just basically been unreachable and has not communicated, and I think that's because he doesn't have a plan and he doesn't want people to realize that.
What's the best thing he's done so far?
I think he's made a lot of great hires.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a businessman. He knows how to get things done, and he's hired some great people.
Best thing he's done so far?
Scott Pruitt at the EPA.
Let's do quick takes. Let's talk about another hire. I think probably, I would say of all the things Governor Greitens has done, the most high-profile thing I've seen that I think if you know him, you know he cares about the state and it's connected. He brought Caleb Jones into the administration, lost for the legislature, but I think that's a brilliant move by the governor-elect.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge get for Greitens and a great opportunity for Caleb. We obviously worked with the governor-elect and believe that this was the type of leadership he'd demonstrate. You can see it from his appointments he's announced so far to his staff hires. I think he's putting together an awesome team that's going to do great work.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know Caleb Jones.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you could find a person better suited to come in and do that role.
Right, and he's got the relationships, and people trust him. So when he comes over to talk to us, we're going to listen.
Tracy McCreary, you know Caleb Jones.
Yeah.
I mean, it always amazed me the number of contacts he has in that phone. I mean, it's out of this world. When you represent Mid-Missouri, you're around you represent some of the people that work in government. You can come meet with him easier. I think people underestimate the amount of contacts he has inside the
Well, and he has
bureaucracy.
a breadth of knowledge on so many issues because of his leadership in the Missouri House. And I think considering Greitens doesn't have government experience, bringing someone like Representative Jones into his administration is a great idea.
I'm glad to listen for Mark Reardon, who was a big Eric Greitens supporter from the start. He was very proud of this. I have to admit, I mean, it's one of the best things I've seen a governor do in a while.
Actually, I have a very high opinion of Caleb. We don't always agree on our issues, but I think when we have an issue and a message that we'd like to get to the governor, that Caleb will, when I talk to Caleb will get the accuracy to the governor without injecting his opinion into what I say to Caleb.
Very few things in politics can be totally liked by all the people on this panel. That was one of them. Let's talk about the Scott Trade Center. Do you think that this is a political climate where people can objectively look at this and decide if this is a good investment for the state? I mean, it is a publicly owned building.
It is publicly owned, and I believe that all buildings have to be maintained properly in order to continue to be attractive, not only to the St. Louis Blues, but to the venue as it is to bring in rock concerts, and the list goes on and on and on of the product that portrays, and the benefits to the businesses around the Scott Trade Center as well. We have to keep it in tip-top shape.
Is this something that can work?
I don't think it's going to work. There are too many other important priorities in the state that need to be funded that also have a great return on investment that Mr. Zimmerman mentioned. We are underfunding early childhood education. We're not taking care of the roads. I think this is a no-go.
What do you think? I mean, this was like a test of the business community in St. Louis. Can they come behind one thing and make a compelling case?
Well, I'm a huge Blues fan, and like our speaker said, we're willing to listen to what they have to say.
What do you think?
Yeah, look, I can, for one, appreciate the humility they come to this process with after watching the way Stan Kroenke treated folks. Look, they've got a case to be made, and like I said earlier, you need to approach people who look at government as making strategic investments in the growth of the state, and they've got to make that argument. It's a great ownership group, philanthropic, and I think they've done a great job.
Quick take, the Secretary of State used his last time in the public eye to break with tradition and come out and kind of lecture the Republicans on an issue that lost at the polls. What'd you think of it? You were sitting there in the room.
Well, it made swearing-in day a lot more fiery than normal. I was wide awake and alert. I appreciate what he was trying to do, which is to remind all of us in the House that there are people that would be disenfranchised and it would make it harder for some in Missouri to vote.
What'd you think?
I really did not see that as a slap in the face to anyone. I saw it as his understanding, which is the same as mine, that the people of Missouri have given this legislature a lot of room for a lot of movement within the realm of that part of the Constitution. Mm-hmm. And they have got to be very, very
pretty partisan
thoughtful.
Break from tradition. A lot of statesmen have taken that podium. That wasn't a statesman speech.
But how many have had an issue as important as people's rights to vote?
It's true.
How many times have the people voted in support of this, though? I mean,
well, won by a huge majority, but under Kander's tenure, we saw more voting irregularities and problems in our electoral system than we've ever had. So he's not really one to be lecturing Republicans on that issue.
I think he's a smart guy, talented guy, makes Missouri look good on the national stage. I thought it was a mistake.
Yeah, I think it was another reminder that it's time for Secretary-elect Ashcroft to take office.
Oh, another victory client. All right, we've got a minute left in this week in Missouri politics. Who won the week, Joe Lakin?
Speaker Todd Richardson.
That's a tough one. I mean, when I looked at that, I thought the last person on the national stage went from Speaker to Senator, Marco Rubio. Might be the same.
Yeah.
Speaker Richardson, absolutely.
Wow. I will go, I'll give you the dark horse, Bill Kinney, the quarterback, former state senator, PSC, going to be in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame the end of the month. I'll go Elijah Hart, won a tough-fought leadership race. It was nice to see the caucus come together behind the new Speaker Pro Tem. Who won the week to you, though?
I think Elijah Hart won the week, and I think that the fact that they mentioned SJR 39, that anti-LGBT resolution that was stopped under his leadership, I think that says a lot for him.
Who won the week?
Senator Ryan Silvey, for standing up to the leadership in the Senate and saying, I'm going to continue to represent the people of my district, not the big money.
I thought it was probably deserving that he still chaired the Conference Committee, but I thought it was he was still chair when he spoke his mind. And that's when you're in the media or just like it's nice to people who actually speak their mind. And we will be back here next week on This Week in Missouri Politics, speaking our minds. See you then. This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to you by Spire and Sterling Bank.